Okay, just voluisse sacrificium. So it comes away from the accent and then back to the next one.
Tomorrow's Ash Wednesday, and that means that as part of the Mass, when the congregation are ashed, when they receive a cross of ashes on their head, we sing the Miserere by Allegri. It's been sung for generations. In the Vatican, it used to be a secret piece that nobody was allowed to transcribe, but modern editions have been made in the last kind of half a century, and it's become a real sort of contemporary classic, no doubt because it has this very distinctive high C sung by a solo treble over and over again, several times in the course of the piece. So that inevitably becomes a focus, for the boys especially, because it's very exciting for them. Try to downplay that, but it's really impossible to repress that.
Every week there's about sort of 3 solos that come up in canticles, but the Allegri solo is quite special, so that's the sort of tough competition between all of us.
The choristers perform with 12 professional singers, called lay vicars. Every year on Ash Wednesday, 2 men and 2 boys are chosen to sing in a quartet in the musical centrepiece of the service. To decide who will get the coveted high solo part, the music staff have to run a selection process.
Let's have a look at page 4, Amplius. Okay, let's hear Andrew on the top line and Matthew on the second line down for this. Here we go now.
I think the difficulty with singing this piece in the competition is that every year we do this piece, and so you try and improve from the year before. And this year I think we're trying to do it better than we did last year, and last year we're trying to do it better than the year before.
If you want to be doing the Allegri, you need confidence and a high voice, yes.
I'm hoping to get the solo. I'm hoping to be the top part, it's quite high.
Well, I'm hoping I'm going to get it. Well, I'm in contention with Matthew, so it's just really up to the choir master.
Just let it flow on there, please. And. No, that's not coming out, is it? Andrew's terribly keen to do it. And he's so keen that when we've run through it in the rehearsals, he's doing something. I think what he's doing is just stopping the air flowing through his voice. And so the notes don't come out. And that becomes a vicious cycle for a singer. If they stop the air flowing and the voice stutters a bit, then a boy who is not as experienced as an adult singer at countering this will tend to tense up even more, and that stops the air flowing even more. It becomes even more of a problem. Now, I'd like to hear Bede and Luciano, please. And... Fine. So, Bede, you were late going up to the C as well. A little bit more counting is needed in your case, but it's very good. I think let's send off then Andrew and Ben and Bede and Hugh and Matthew and Luciano off to rehearse with Mr. Ford.
We're going next door to rehearse more of the Allegri solo, where a few boys try out and then we all learn it, the solo, and then whoever sounds the best, we choose for the solo.
Let's try everybody just so we get the sense of the words, and then we'll split you up in a minute. So let's try to start with everybody. So top page 4.
Once they've mastered the Latin words, the boys are divided into pairs to sing the high and low solo lines.
make sure you're lifting a little bit more on those dotted notes. And that, what bar is it? About the fourth bar, top of that line. A little bit more lifting there, because if you're going to be up in the organ loft, to make it clear downstairs, we need to really overemphasise things. So a little bit more lifting there. Just once more, we'll carry on this time. Same thing. And
It's just mainly the high part, getting that top C. If you're older than the younger boys, it's going to be harder for you because your voice is nearer to the breaking point.
You need to be aware that you're not locking your jaw, because sometimes if you get nervous, you lock your jaw and the sound gets sort of jammed inside your throat, and then it comes out as a feeble sort of noise.
First thing I'm going to do now is talk to Martin, my colleague who took the various candidates out, and see what he thinks, because he will have heard them closely and he'll have a recommendation or two, I imagine.
At song school, the process of choosing the soloists for today's service continues.
Gradually they cut away boys, so like today myself and Bede didn't get the solo, but then only 2 boys can get it. But still I'm sure it'll sound brilliant.
I can see you've got your hands here, but I can't actually see any movement, which is fine for this part of the phrase. But when we get to the next one, you're going to get a bit stuck, I think. Okay, so make sure there's actually a physical movement. You feel it going in all the time. So right from the start of the phrase, as soon as you take that breath, and in all the way. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. So next line down. So,
For that high line, we'll have either Andrew or Ben. They're both natural performers. They both enjoy the feeling of singing on their own. We often find that boys really want to do solos, or verses as they're often called. But when it actually comes to it, they freeze a bit because they're not used to that sort of exposure. But then there are others, and Andrew and Ben are among them, who really thrive, I think, on doing things on their own.
It's getting quite close to the service. We've whittled down the number of boys who might be singing the solo this afternoon, which is partially for their own sanity, so they're not worrying about it all day at school. They're not quite sure who's actually going to be singing it at this stage.
The congregation begins to arrive for the Ash Wednesday service, and the lay vicars join the boys for a run-through. At the last minute, Robert Quinney can finally announce who has got the solo parts.
Ben will sing the top part and Matthew will sing the part below. They're both very reliable singers and they perform well, and Ben clearly wants to do it. Martin felt that those two were certainly the top people.
To achieve the maximum acoustic effect, Ben and Matthew will sing with the adult soloists in the organ loft, high above the congregation.
The good thing about doing it then is that it's at the beginning of a rehearsal, so I can simply send them off and then get on with some other music. So there'll be no kind of reaction from the other boys. They'll just have to sort of get on with their work. So if any of them are disappointed, they're professional enough to understand that we simply have to choose the person who's going to do it best.
Everyone likes doing solos, but the main thing is because we're a choir, we sing together and we're sort of one big team.
Because it's such a small community, you almost don't want to push your best friend out of the limelight. You just accept that it's going to be you next time, hopefully, or you will get another chance. It's not the end of the world if you don't get that particular solo.
They did well, and they seem to be pleased with it. If they're pleased with it, then there's no point in my saying, well, didn't you think the tuning was a bit off on occasional notes, because they obviously have a sense of achievement, and they did actually achieve something quite considerable. They stood up and did it in a confident way and under a lot of pressure, and not just the normal amount of pressure, but with cameras rolling as well, which, you know, does add a certain extra kind of frisson to things.